Space robots. Humans have always looked up into the night sky and dreamt about space. In the latter half of 20th century, rockets were developed that were powerful enough to overcome the force of gravity to reach orbital velocities, paving the way for space exploration to become a reality. In the 1930s and 1940s, Nazi Germany saw possibilities of using long-distance rockets as weapons. Late in World War II, London was attacked by 200-mile range V-2 missiles, which arched 60 miles high over the English Channel at more than 3,500 miles per hour. After World War II, the United States and the Soviet Union created their own missile programs. On October 4, 1957, the Soviets launched the first artificial satellite, Sputnik 1, into space. 4 years later, on April 12, 1961, Russian Lieutenant Yuri Gagarin became the first human to orbit Earth in Vostok 1. His flight lasted 108 minutes, and Gagarin reached an altitude of 327 kilometers. The first US satellite, Explorer 1, went into orbit on January 31, 1958. In 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American to fly into space. 1 year later, in 1962, John Glenn's historic flight made him the first American to orbit Earth. The first US satellite, Explorer 1, went into orbit on January 31, 1958. In 1961, Alan Shepard became the first American to fly into space, and 1 year later, John Glenn's historic flight made him the first American to orbit Earth. Landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth within a decade was a national goal set by President J.F. Kennedy in 1961. On July 20, 1969, astronaut Neil Armstrong took one giant leap for the mankind as he stepped onto the moon. Total of 6 Apollo missions were made to explore our natural satellite between 1969 and 1972. During the 1960s, unmanned spacecraft photographed and probed the moon before astronauts even landed. By the early 70s, orbiting communication and navigation satellites were in everyday use, and the Mariner spacecraft was orbiting and mapping the surface of Mars. By the end of the decade, the Voyager spacecraft had sent back detailed images of Jupiter and Saturn, also their rings and their moons.